Welcome to 24 Chambers of Film. We're going to be giving you some movie recommendations for this Friday the 13th, which is right around the corner. Guess when? This Friday. So, Friday the 13th, there's a lot of, myth around it as being unlucky, being a kind of time for horror movies. I really don't know how it got started or any of that kind of stuff. Not really looking into it. It's just a reason to give you some good horror movies to watch, and that's exactly what we're going to do in this video. We're going to give you 13 movies to watch on Friday the 13th. How this is going to work is we're going to go back and forth, giving you a movie that each of us recommends, and then at the end, we're going to go Rochambeau or paper, rock, scissors, however you want to call it, and whoever wins that one round is going to give you the final suggestion. So with that said, Steven, go ahead and list your first movie that you recommend everyone watch on Friday the 13th.
All right, thanks, Nate. For the first movie that I'm going to do, it's a John Carpenter film from the 80s, 1987. It doesn't get enough appreciation, I believe. I think it's underrated, but it's called Prince of Darkness.
Anyone in close proximity has the same dream.
Written and directed by John Carpenter. It's basically science meets religion in this end of the world possession horror film. Very interesting film. It has Donald Pleasance. He plays Dr. Loomis in the Halloween film. So it's got a cast that you'll recognize. It has Dennis Dunn from Big Trouble in Little China, Victor Wong from Big Trouble in Little China. Those are probably like Alice Cooper has a cameo, but basically the main setting of this film is in a church, and they've unlocked this old thing that's being hidden by the Catholic religion. And these students and the professor have to team up with the priest, who's played by Donald Pleasance, to figure out and decode this message that was left behind by a priest that died. And it deals with the anti-God, stuff like that, but with science mixed in it. It's a very unique premise, very fun film, very cool film, great music by John Carpenter, great direction as always, cool kills. I mean, it's a good time. I think it's a very underrated movie of his filmography that doesn't get enough attention, and I absolutely love it. I think more people need to watch it. So that's my recommendation, Prince of Darkness. What's yours, Nate? What's your first pick?
My first pick, I'm going to stick to the unlucky 13, of the unluckiness of 13th. It's going to be Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs.
But what goes on under the stairs is a nightmare.
I think that is a good horror movie that's not like a full-blown horror movie. It's disturbing. It deals with Vin Rames in that, and essentially him and Brandon Adams, I think.
Sandlot. Yeah, Brandon Adams, you're right. Yeah.
He plays Nunez in The Sandlot, and he gets talking to Vin Rames, to break into this house of some rich people so that they can, steal a bunch of stuff that's worth money. And then when they get in there, they realize that it is essentially not what they were expecting, and their little plot to walk away with money turns into a fight for survival, essentially.
Yeah.
And I think that is a great film, especially if you're not super into like the horror gore stuff. That is a good one for you to watch.
No, definitely. Great choice. I love that movie. So my next pick is more of a family horror film. I grew up watching this movie. It's still great. I love it. So if you're trying to watch something where everybody can watch, I recommend 1989's Joe Dante's The Burbs.
The Burbs. I'm going over the fence, and I'm not coming back till I find a dead body.
Love this film. Stars Tom Hanks, Corey Feldman's in it, Bruce Dern, Carrie Fisher, Rick Duncan. I think I pronounced his name right. But it has a great cast. Basically, you follow these suburbanites in this cul-de-sac, Tom Hanks being the lead. And Tom Hanks gets new neighbors, and they're creepy and weird as hell, very reclusive. And basically, him and other neighbors start snooping around because they think they are involved in potential murder. And hijinks ensue. It's just a great performance by Tom Hanks. Hilarious, even some good creepy moments. But like I said, if you're trying to watch something with the whole family or that's a general audience movie, this movie, The Burbs, it's great. And it doesn't hold any punches for being a family movie. I feel like it's still, it still feels very adult. It's not like the cheesiness works when it is cheesy, and there's some cool badass moments, especially at the end of the film with Tom Hanks. So I highly recommend this movie. You haven't seen it. Super fun. It's a classic. I absolutely adore this movie.
So my next pick is a more modern horror movie. It is The Cabin in the Woods.
This isn't right. We should split up.
Yeah, good idea.
Really?
I think it's another great pick where if you are not a huge horror fan, it's not so over the top that you're going to be like traumatized by it. It is more of a movie that makes fun of horror movies while being a horror movie in itself. And I think that it's one of the better made horror movies in recent times because it just works so well and actually has a young Chris Hemsworth that a lot of people, before he was, I'm not sure if it was 100% before he was Thor, but it was definitely before he had
no, it was before he was, but that movie got delayed and Thor came, it helped the movie in the long run when it came out 100%. Because he was already known.
But it's definitely a good movie. Again, one to watch. There really isn't much to explain. It's not a comedy about horror movies, but it parodies a lot of the stuff that goes on in horror movies. And just consider it an upgraded slasher style film with some of the paranormal stuff as well mixed in. And it's just a fun watch, honestly.
All right. So my next pick is Psycho 2.
It's 22 years later, and Norman Bates is coming home.
1983, directed by Richard Franklin. This is the 22 years later sequel of the 1960 original film Psycho. I absolutely love this movie. This movie is underappreciated. I think a lot of people don't even realize there's Psycho sequels. I think they forget that there's actually a Psycho 2, Psycho 3, and a Psycho 4, and then obviously the 1998 remake by Gus Van Sant. But this is a hot take. I think it's better than the original Psycho. I love this sequel. I think it's a perfect sequel. This is the way sequels should always be done. You bring stuff in from the old, but you do something new and different with it. And this is what Psycho 2 does. Anthony Perkins never been better. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's a great slasher murder mystery with some great twists in there. I think, it's just great storytelling.
So for my next pick, I'm going to go with a movie that should be picked on Friday the 13th simply because it fits the theme of Friday the 13th perfectly. It's not Friday the 13th, the first one, but it's actually Friday the 13th Part 3.
Because 13 is an unlucky number.
Simply because Friday the 13th, the series, just the name, has become so iconic with Jason Voorhees, and that is his first appearance as the hockey mask Jason. So if you're going to watch a movie, that's not a bad choice simply because it fits right into the perfect theme of Friday the 13th. I mean, you know what Friday the 13th movies are about, so there isn't much explaining that needs to be done other than the fact that that's the first time Jason appears with the hockey mask.
All right, so my next pick is one of my favorite movies ever. It's Dawn of the Dead, 2004 remake by Zack Snyder.
Officials have declared a state of emergency.
Everybody they kill gets up and kills. Residents are advised to find a safe place and stay there.
I adore this movie. Best movie theater experience of my life to this day still. What can you say? These people, it's a zombie apocalypse, and a group of survivors take shelter in the local mall. And you basically see how they survive through this whole zombie apocalypse and how they're going to get out of there. What's their plan to escape? Great characters. These movies you need to rely on great characters for it to work. And this movie delivers great characters. Even the smallest characters that don't get a bunch of details or insight about their characters are great. Great acting. Vin Rames, off the charts. So many great performances. If you haven't seen this movie, it's great. I think it's better than the original, and I love the original. But, if you're going to watch one, I say watch the 2004 Dawn of the Dead remake over the original, even though the original one's great. So watch them both. But yeah.
So my next movie is 2007's The Mist.
We have to get out of here.
Who knows how far this mist has spread?
It could be the whole world for all we know. It wouldn't make us any less dead.
I think if you're playing on the 13, the unluckiness of 13, trust me, once you see this one, this is probably the most unlucky thing you will ever see when it comes to how this movie ends up playing out. So I think it's a perfect film to watch when it comes to for Friday the 13th. It's got a little bit of creepiness. It's not your traditional, slasher type of gut type of movie. It is good. It has Thomas Jane, who does a great job. It has Marcia Gay Harden, Laurie Holden. A lot of people that don't recognize Laurie Holden, she was in the Walking Dead series. And again, it's just one of those movies that it is not your traditional horror flick. It plays out a little bit slower, but all of it to me is a payoff because of how it ends. And I think that's really where you kind of get your big payoff in this movie, and it's worth a watch. You're going to feel some way about it no matter what at the end.
All right, so my next pick is 2003 James Mangold film, Identity.
What happened to the motel? People started dying.
With John Cusack, Ray Liotta, Amanda Peet, John Hawkes, Alfred Molina. I mean, the cast is phenomenal in this movie. I remember seeing this. This is one of those movies that has one of my favorite reveals in the climax. Such a great watch, very entertaining. These people, there's a rainstorm, and I think it's like 10 people get stuck at a motel, this rundown motel, and then people start getting killed one by one. It's a very giallo, slasher-like film. Very well done. John Cusack, I think, is amazing in this film. So it's a movie that's underappreciated. It did good when it came out initially, but I feel like it's just kind of gone under the radar over the years. And I think it needs a renaissance of attention. And I think this movie is phenomenal. Identity, 2003. Check it out. I think you guys will really like this movie.
All right. Well, my next pick for this is not a traditional horror film per se. It's actually a documentary. And it's called Never Sleep Again, the Elm Street story.
And Nightmare on Elm Street not only speaks the language of cinema, but it speaks this universal story of the bad dream.
And it is one of the best documentaries that I have ever seen. It basically chronicles the entire creation of Nightmare on Elm Street from the very first film to the most recent. I don't think it includes the remake, but the most recent one that still involves the classic Robert Englund's Freddy in there. And they bring back a majority of the cast, from writers to actors to producers, and it is amazing. It literally one of the best. It made me like the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise more. I was okay with it. I wasn't a fan of it really. Like, I was just like, okay, it exists, it's good. This made me like more. And, they show you clips of the films. So, there's going to be some violence in there. But overall, it's just a great documentary. It's pretty long, though. So you're going to have to set up quite a few, like 4 hours or something like that aside to watch this whole thing. But top-notch documentary when it comes to horror movies.
All right. So my next one is Red State.
I hate the wickedness of America. Rampant fornication, adultery, abortion, flagrant sexuality.
From 2011, directed by the great Kevin Smith. This is his first venture into the horror genre, and he delivers this horrific religious action thriller with John Goodman in it. Michael Parks gives an amazing performance. Melissa Leo's in it. Just a great cast, great premise. Basically, these kids get duped by this very close-minded cult that are super Old Testament, and they get taken to their area, their home, their church where they live, and craziness and horror ensues in this film. And it is a very intense. You watch this movie, you wouldn't, if you didn't know who directed it, you'd be like, who directed this movie? You wouldn't have guessed it was Kevin Smith. He really ups his filmmaking craftsmanship in this movie. I think very well done, very gritty, very raw film, the way it's shot and the style. But I absolutely adore this film. It doesn't get enough recognition. I think a lot of people kind of like have forgotten about it. I just feel like this movie needs a renaissance as well, because it's a very well-made movie. and very disturbing movie because of the religious element and the cult-like mentality of the bad guys in this film. But yeah, very well done. Definitely unexpected too, as well. It's not like a movie you can kind of predict how it's going to end, in my opinion. So yeah, Red State, check it out. 2011 by Kevin Smith.
So my last guaranteed pick, unless I win the Rochambeau paper, rock, scissors face off, I'm thinking about it in the way of I've been pretty like, these are good movies, but sometimes they're just, you got to give them a fucked up movie to watch, right? And if they haven't seen like a fucked up movie to watch, I think The Human Centipede is one of the better ones to watch.
A Siamese triplet connected via the gastric system. The Human Centipede.
I personally, the concept itself is disturbing enough.
Yeah.
And then when you watch it, you're like, why am I watching this? Because it's just like, what the F, So it's essentially, I mean, you find out right away, but it's essentially a crazy guy who creates his own human centipede by connecting people together.
By ass to mouth,
yeah, essentially, I was trying not to give it away. I was trying to make them work their head a little bit there and see what they can come up with. But yeah, essentially make Human Centipede ass to mouth, ass to mouth, ass to mouth. So what's crazy is it's got 2 sequels. That's even
that is
crazier.
crazy. That is wild.
There you go. The Human Centipede. I mean, if you want to watch an effed up one, watching the Human Centipede, and you're going to be like, what did I just watch at the end of that? So there you guys have it. You have 6 movies from Steven, 6 movies from me. Now we're about to Rochambeau or paper, rock, scissors, whatever the hell you want to call it. Winner gets to pick the final Friday the 13th movie. Steven, you can count us down, and we're going to go paper. What do you want to do? Rock, paper, scissors, go?
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Shoot. Okay, so when you start us, we're going to go, and it's just 1 out of 1. There is no best out of whatever.
Okay. All right, on 3. 1, 2, 3. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Cool.
That was a fair and square win. That was a
Not
fair
on
and square
my
win,
end.
baby.
Not on my end, but okay, go ahead.
That was a fair and square win, baby.
Go ahead.
All right. So the last pick here. Now I feel like there's a lot of pressure because I gotta give you something to watch. And I feel like we've been playing it pretty safe with some of these movies that we've been giving you. They're not very horrific, very grotesque, or anything like that.
You picked the Human Centipede. What are you talking about?
That was one, but like everything else is like baby shit compared to that. No, you know what? Hey, I'm going to give you a classic. And I'm only giving you this classic because I remember when I was a kid, I used to read about this movie all the time and about everything when it's saying it's Cannibal Holocaust.
The law of the jungle. Eat or be eaten.
Okay?
Okay.
It is basically a film that was made. And when they made this movie, they didn't know it was a documentary, but it was real, to the point that the director had to bring in his cast, which I believe was from Italy, into a studio to show that they were still alive. Obviously, cinema's come a long way. That doesn't really happen anymore. But I thought that was so fascinating as a kid that the guy's movie was so realistic. And when you look at it, I can see how back
trial. And he went to trial for it.
Yes, exactly. And I can see how back in the day when you watch this, it could be misconstrued for that. Nowadays, you see it and you be like, "Nah, that's fake," But back in the day,
it still looks pretty real. I mean, now you know the truth. But I think if you showed it to someone, I bet you I could convince someone that has no knowledge of this movie, like, this is real, and they would watch it and they'd be like, "Holy shit! I just saw people get murdered and eaten alive." It's that realistic.
Could be. Well, it's because it was all done. I mean, again, we talk about all the time practical effects. Back then it was,
and also
it was all the
this,
purpose was to look real. And it has that, This had the feel of, this was the Blair Witch before the Blair Witch came out. This was Paranormal Activity before Paranormal Activity came out, but it didn't have to do with anything spiritual. It had to do with real life stuff. So it's an iconic classic film, especially if you're into horror films. You should, and you haven't seen this, you should definitely watch it. And it's just, and I don't think it's like crazy over the top. You see more violence in a lot of the stuff nowadays. It's just the way it's done works so well to like, what the hell am I watching, So that's that's the pick right there, Cannibal Holocaust. You know, there's plenty of other good movies, but those are 13 movies that we think you should watch on Friday the 13th if you're looking to watch some scary movies. So there you guys have it. That's 13 movies to watch on Friday the 13th. Let us know in the comments what movies you recommend watching on Friday the 13th. Obviously, there's tons of great scary movies to watch. And we appreciate you guys tuning into the video. We'd appreciate if you guys smash a like on the video. And we appreciate if you guys subscribe to the channel. Once again, we're 24 Chambers of Film. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And happy Friday the 13th.